Hello everybody, Nitsa here. Let's talk about the game Sonic the Hedgehog. No, not that game. I'm talking about the 2006 Sonic the Hedgehog, or as many people like to call, Sonic 06. The 2006 Sonic the Hedgehog is a Sonic game that was originally going to act as a reboot for the Sonic series, which is why the game is called Sonic the Hedgehog. The reboot acts as Sonic's 15th anniversary title, and it would change the way we think about Sonic. And boy, it did. The game was rushed due to multiple developmental issues, but Sega wanted to make this in time for the 15th anniversary game around Christmas. But by doing so, it got so much negative responses from both critics and fans alike. But the shocking thing is that the creators themselves were aware that there were bugs that needed to be fixed, and they didn't make the decision to delay the game so they can fix them. So as you can imagine, it's pretty cliched if I were to talk about how bad this game is. It was definitely rushed with so many problems ranging from gameplay glitches, awkward platforming, lack of control when you're trying not to fall off an edge, and of course those goddamn loading screens. Even the story itself had a few narrative problems, and there's many more that people have pointed out, so there's really not much to talk about anymore. Well, maybe we can talk about something else. What about the good stuff in the game? Look, just hear me out. Sure, this game is not only considered to be the worst Sonic game ever made, but it's also considered to be one of the worst games ever made. But that doesn't mean there can't be some good elements in it. It's not like a game where they had nothing to work with like Atari ET or Mind Jack. They do add a lot of stuff to this game in the hopes it will make it a great anniversary title, and it's an installment to a well-beloved ongoing series. And in my opinion, a few pay off, but most don't. Are there more good moments than bad? Oh hell no. But I am here to look over this game and see what good stuff I can find about it. Also, keep in mind this is all opinion based, and there will be some spoilers. And since it was hard coming up with 10, I reduced this list down to 7. Why 7? Because 7 is the magic number in Sonic. You know, the 7 Chaos Emeralds, the 7 Super Emeralds, the 7 Soul Emeralds, the 7 World Reigns, the Daily 7... 6? 7 is Sonic's magic number. So, sit back as we go through my top 7 actual good moments of Sonic 06. Number 7. The different stages. I know bringing up the stages in this game is kind of odd to focus on, but I actually think the visual style of each of them is kind of unique. Is the gameplay good in any of them? No. But when this game was originally going to be a reboot, it makes sense that the creators would make the graphics better and make the worlds unique and different. Which is why they try to make Dr. Eggman look more human to the point where you see his real eyes behind his glasses. But of course the downside to all of it is while the graphics are good, the animation and physics is not really on par with how good animation was around the time. I mean, compare the footage of Sonic running through Kingdom Valley in the beta version of the game compared to the final. They cancelled out Sonic's animation in the final, which is stupid because it just makes the gameplay more awkward when you have Sonic jumping off of the walls completely stiff like that. Well, Sonic Team, thanks for making me look like a f***ing idiot. Okay, be sure to come back for Sonic Unleashed! If they gave the game more time and took the consideration to delay it, there's no doubt the animation would run smoothly so it flows well with the graphics that surround you. But I gotta be honest, one of the things that do stand out in the game is the visual style. Not just throughout the entire game, but how they can make each stage different, which is more than I can say for the hub worlds. 2 of them are pretty much the same, and the forest, it's just bland and empty.
This is so unbelievable.
No, it's not. They might as well have used it for a Super Smash Bros. Backdrop. The stages range from a snow mountain, a desert, an interior base, the jungle, a railroad, 2 post-apocalyptic stages, a kingdom in ruin, and of course the Wave Ocean stage paying an homage to Emerald Coast from Sonic Adventure. You got the visual style of it, except it's kind of updated. And of course you got the killer orcas. Some people argue this makes the game more angering, as Emerald's coasts were smooth and this one is just as awkward as the rest of the game, but you can forgive it considering it's an anniversary game. Also, there's only 2 stages that takes place in the future, Flame Core and Crisis City, which eventually gets recreated for Sonic Generations. You'd think they would be just as frustrating to get through, but in all honesty, you're right, they are. But the 2 do feel like separate levels on its own, being both unique in a visual style over gameplay. Some people admit that Crisis City is the only level in the game that is actually good, but I don't know, why do I keep on having problems with it? Anyway, while I do consider the gameplay in every stage to be just as bad as the others, you can't deny that each stage does have a unique visual to it. Yeah, some are bland or alright, but doesn't the visuals of Kingdom Valley look pretty neat and mysterious, given it its mythological feeling? Doesn't Crisis City feel big whenever you play it? Doesn't it feel like you have to get through White Acropolis and Aquatic Base to find out what will happen next? If you can't get into the gameplay, then maybe you can get into the visuals. And heck, if you can't admire that either, keep in mind we're only at the start of this list, so we have much more to go through. Trust me, it was like hard coming up with 5.
This looks so beautiful.
What? You mean this desert?
Number 6. Shadow is pretty badass. I was kind of skeptical of putting Shadow on this list because even though he covers up 1/3 of the story, there's not too much to say about him. But I gotta be honest when I say, Shadow is such a badass character in this game. I mean, yeah, he always has been, but think of the game that came before Sonic 06. No, not that one. There we go, Shadow the Hedgehog. Let's face it, people, whether if you like this game or not, it did support Shadow's character arc. Throughout the game, you are playing as Shadow as he makes the decision to either save humanity or conquer it. Should he do it his own way, or be an ally to Black Doom or humanity? Or will the game ultimately make you end up choosing humanity and defeating Black Doom in the end? This is just as much false advertising as when Sonic Adventure 2 said you could save the world or conquer it, but then end up saving the world. But I digress. The dark tones in Shadow the Hedgehog is justified because it sets the character and how gritty and dangerous he is. And without any answers on who he is and what he should do, it makes us identify with him more. So when we see him in this game, we know he's dangerous but on humanity's side, so it gives him much more of a darker but badass look to him. But what also seems neat is if you watch most of his cutscenes, a lot of them are usually gritty. The opening to White Acropolis is pretty damn awesome, and even some moments with Mephiles was kinda neat to watch. But also the gameplay shows that badassery too. You got him doing flips in mid-air to defeat his enemies, and using the Chaos Spear, which, to be honest, I never found useful until facing Solaris, and riding vehicles, which is also kinda not really that unique, aside from the White Acropolis mission, just like in Shadow the Hedgehog. Of course it's an homage, but to me I find it to be a good homage. Sure, he has bugs during his gameplay, but if you were to ask me which one of the 3 main characters I like to play as the most, Shadow the Hedgehog would be my answer. I mean, as awkward as those kickflips can be in some situations, if it looks awesome and it helps me defeat the enemies quicker, I personally don't care. The only downside with Shadow in this game is that there's not much of a character development that he goes through. I mean, you do have some heartfelt moments with Rouge clarifying to Shadow that she'll never betray him, and how Mephiles succeeds in deceiving Shadow works until he comes to his senses that if he's to prevent the apocalypse from ever happening, then he'll have to do anything it takes to stop Mephiles, even if it means fighting to his last breath. The side characters are the same as Team Dark from Sonic Heroes, which are both Omega and Rouge, and while their gameplay is still pretty buggy just like the rest of the characters in this game, I think their character and loyalty to Shadow is still pretty good. After all, how often can you trust to kill a robot?
Eventually, when something or someone is seen as too powerful, it is seen as a threat.
Granted, Omega's voice is pretty odd. Come on, he was fine the way he was in Heroes.
You know about cloning. The original must exist somewhere.
It also helps that Shadow has that kick-ass song of his from Shadow the Hedgehog. Actually, maybe I should put that as a number 6.5 while I have the chance.
All hail Shadow, heroes rise again, obliterating everything that's not your friend. Nothing can stop you now, no ghost to bring you down. There's nothing left to lose, you win.
A pretty damn good remix version by Crush 40 compared to Shadow the Hedgehog's original All Hail Shadow. If you were to put the two different versions right beside me and ask which one is better, Sonic 06 is right on the money. Even if you can't get into the character arc that they're supposedly trying to fit in or even his gameplay, you can't deny that out of the four main stories in this game, Shadow's story and Shadow himself is totally badass.
Why fight at all? Why risk your life for those who will persecute you later?
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
Number 5. The relationship between Sonic and Princess Elise.
What?
Look, just hear me out.
When I say relationship, I don't mean what people find the most controversial about Sonic and Elise's connection. They first start off with a decent friendship, and it goes as far as Elise kissing Sonic to revive him from his death.
Sonic, come back. To me. To us.
Oh, no. Did you really have to go there, game? Did you really have to go there, game, you motherfucker? My point is, I actually do think the relationship between Sonic and Elise as friends is quite effective for what the creators were going for. It's just the romance aspect at the end went too far. Do I think their friendship is done perfectly?
Well, let's talk about it.
The game starts off with Eggman intervening in the Soliana Festival, which I have to say was a great way to start off the game. The first time I saw this opening cutscene, I was like, really? This game is bad? The game looks so promising! Eggman's new design isn't so bad, the pacing and animation is perfect, the visuals are gorgeous, it has Sonic being a goofy badass, Silver's appearance at the end was mysterious, and yes, even Elise herself seemed kind of interesting. But what follows afterwards is one of the most annoying things story-wise in this game. Saved you, damn it! Saved you, damn it! Got you out of there, damn it! Come with me, princess! There, now nothing shall ever get you again, damn it! Good God, this woman has been kidnapped more times than Princess Peach herself! In one freaking game! So, yeah, she's pretty much nothing but a damsel in distress to hold in Sonic's arms, right? Well, not really. I mean, maybe to most people she stands out as a bland character with a troubled past and nothing really else. And I'm not gonna act like I don't see the problem. Whenever she's on screen, she presents little to no emotion whatsoever and really has nothing more to say other than thank you.
I have no words to express how grateful I am for your help.
Oh god, will you shut up? This is the 5th time I had to save your ass. Can't you do anything else other than just saying thank you?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, she's really just the girl Sonic needs to save while he stops Eggman's plans. Because of this, she's pretty much bland with little to no personality. But truth be told, I think she's allowed to be bland. And quite honestly, I think it's pretty obvious why she can't present any emotion. When she was only 7 years old, she got herself involved in the accident in which Solaris escapes the aquatic base's laboratory, dividing its raw power and Cut and Mine as two separate entities. When Silver goes back in time with Shadow to find out the truth, Silver manages to hold on to Iblis long enough for the cane to put it in his own daughter, and die after the impact of the explosion. This leaves 7-year-old Elise the only heir to the throne with her father passed away, and a last promise to her father that she will not cry no matter what happens. If she cries, then Iblis will be released from her vessel. Now that's some really heavy stuff for a 7-year-old girl to go through, and I think this justifies why she can't express any emotion and only cares about doing anything for her country, even if it means getting herself captured all the time. But even then, that doesn't necessarily make her a good character, since this is such a contrived concept to begin with. And it does raise further questions, one being, why couldn't her father put Iblis inside himself and die along with it? I mean, it would work much more better than putting it in a 7-year-old girl who's only going to learn her father has passed away.
Even I question to myself, why didn't he have that common sense?
But then after I rewatched one of the cutscenes from Sonic's story, I think the reason why he made such a bold choice is because Iblis would be released anyway if he dies.
According to the data, the princess died when she was kidnapped by Eggman. Apparently, Eggman's battleship exploded.
If we don't return in time, Elise will die on board Eggman's battleship. That means...
Yeah, I think so.
And of course, Iblis happens to be released in this future. Unless she cried at the last minute, which is never really stated in her last moments of life, I think her death would also result in Iblis' release anyway. So the state of the world is screwed either way, unless Iblis gets sealed into another dimension like what Silver and Blaze did in the last part of his story.
But that also brings up the most interesting plot point of disbelief. How is it that a girl from 7 to 17 is able to live her life for 10 years without crying?
Not even a teardrop to keep her eyes from going dry? Not even after her own father's death?
Where am I? Where's my dad?
I'm afraid I have some bad news. No, don't, please don't cry. I'll do anything. Just don't. No!
I mean, damn, that's pretty impressive. And for those of you who are like, oh what, just because she has the flames of disaster inside of her, that totally justifies her reason for having no point in the story at all? Well, again, I think many people forget what she actually does do in the game. Sure, she has to be bland and get herself kidnapped all the time, but she did pass that Chaos Emerald to Sonic. She did take a risk falling off of Eggman's hovercraft so Sonic can catch her. And to her credit, she's more concerned about protecting her own country than herself. That makes her less of a selfish character and more of a person who's willing to put her life on the line as long as she's able to avoid any kind of emotion. One example would be in this cutscene where she avoids making any eye contact to Eggman. I think that was definitely intentional as she's trying to avoid any kind of emotional tension that could result in her crying. But that doesn't mean she doesn't feel any bad about the way Eggman is threatening her own people. She keeps her emotions on the inside so she can avoid letting it all out. Now, whether she knows she has the power of Iblis inside of her is not really certain, but think about what she was like at the beginning of the game and at the very end before erasing Solaris from existence. In the beginning, she was having a good time with her people, and any nightmares of Iblis being released she keeps on the inside. And when Eggman does attack, she does react in a way I think most people would if they were in this situation. But then we get to where Elise and Sonic talk about what this will mean if they erase Solaris from existence. And honestly, I think she does represent a change in her character here. She knows they will never see each other again or even remember their times together. If anything, she's willing to put the world in danger because of how much of a connection she's made to Sonic. Sure, you gotta witness
that, but what about their relationship as a friendship?
Well, Elise knows Sonic is gonna do anything he can to save her and go after Dr. Eggman. In the first parts of the game, we don't see them interact that much because she got herself kidnapped. But then there's that scene after her first kidnapping where they are running through the plains. This is a moment in the story where it gives time for both Sonic and Elise to breathe and have a moment of peace and quiet without any conflict to get in the way. It's actually kind of charming. Yeah, sometimes the acting and dialogue can be wooden sometimes, but hey, some people forget that even the first Sonic Adventure game, the cutscenes weren't always the best.
Watch out! You're gonna crash! Ah!
Then it's not until her second kidnapping does Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles go into the future and get kidnapped for a third frickin' time. But unlike her last two kidnappings, she doesn't wait until Sonic comes to save her. She actually waits for her opportunity to fall off the hovercraft. This is because with the time they had, even though it's pretty brief, she trusts that Sonic will catch her. And then after they go through the jungle, we get another HD cutscene with them giving time to breathe. But this time, much more deeper and visually stunning than the scene with them in the plains. And this is the point in the story where they do talk about their duty to the world and how much they care for it, and do not want to break their honor to save it. Elise is willing to do anything to protect her country she loves, and Sonic is willing to do anything he can to stop Eggman's evil deeds, or whatever comes to threaten their world. So as long as they know they can embrace their responsibilities, then Sonic will be able to stop Eggman while keeping solely on his people unharmed. And since we're playing as Sonic, we're just as used to the heartbreaking moments as he knows he might possibly never see the people again he's come across. So it's not as hard on him as it is with Elise. And since Sonic is our main character and he has done so much for Elise more than she has done for him, who's to say we know the pain she's going through when she tries not to cry? So, when I say relationship, I actually mean their companionship. Throughout the entire story, whether for better or worse, it seems like they're both trying to do anything that is right. Even if Elise is not doing much, she has to be able to keep her emotions on the inside, but she is able to express more just because of the amount of time she's spent with Sonic. It's not a lot, but I do think it's effective, which all pays off when Mephiles kills Sonic. It makes the despair in Elise all the more believable when she does cry. Now, am I honestly saying their companionship is written perfectly? No, but I do think it's good. If they gave this another rewrite and excluded, "Will you stop showing that?" then it would probably come out a little more stronger for those of you who probably can't see the progression that I'm pointing out. Are you going to completely ignore that there was a progression that built up to her release in Iblis after managing to keep it in for 10 years? Yes, it's a ridiculous plot point, but hey, at least it's much more believable than Elise holding on to that one emerald for 10 years when it has been clearly used for the past several years by our main heroes. Seriously, can anybody explain that plot hole without using the reboot excuse? But really, what I'm getting across here for this pick is the progression of Sonic and Elise's companionship, building up to give her a reason to cry. Maybe because the game is bad, it blinds us from seeing this as being any good stuff. But it's there and it feels genuine. And while we're at it, let's talk about the controversy that bothers people the most. Yeah, I know I'm dragging this list on longer than I should, but I feel like I need to talk about it. After Sonic dies, our 7 other playable characters go after the Chaos Emeralds, and Silver states that due to her royal connection to the Eternal Sun, she is the only one who has a better chance of saving Sonic's soul than anyone else does.
Okay, fair enough, I guess.
But then why does God decide to be a perverted deity by waiting for Elise to make her move on a corpse?
I wish to cleanse my father's sin, and I wish to talk to Sonic once again.
You know, Elise, I could revive Sonic's soul right now, but nah, I want to see you make a move on him.
Now it is my time to return the favor.
Come on, kiss him, kiss him, kiss him, kiss him hard. Oh, yeah, that is hot. Alright, Sonic, back in your meat suit you go. I love my work. Diversity for the win.
Now this is the #1 reason why everyone hates Elise. It's very short, but it's one of the most complained aspects of the game that should have been left out.
And I totally agree.
However, the criticism of the scene seems to spark controversy because it seems like Sega is supporting bestiality. And I'm gonna be honest when I say that's not my problem with this kiss, nor do I think Sega is supporting bestiality. I mean, Sonic may be a different animal, but he's an anthropomorphic hedgehog who can speak like a human and act like a human. And let's face it, there's been other tales in fictional worlds we've been okay with it. It just seems like people are saying bestiality is the only excuse to hate the scene. It's like it started off as a joke turned into a literal interpretation, but I don't think bestiality is the problem. There's two reasons the kiss bothers me. One, it comes out of nowhere. There's never really been a moment during their companionship that hints any kind of romance. I mean, unless kissing your friends on the lips is a common thing and I never knew about it, then it doesn't really add up to them having a sexual or romantic relationship whatsoever. And the second reason is just because it's Sonic. It would be like having Mario in a romantic relationship with Rosalina, or Link in a relationship with Ilia. And heck, the romance between Mario and Peach is not really that romantic. It's usually reduced down to a thank you kiss and a date. So to have a game where someone romantically kisses Sonic just seems contrived to be there if there's no build up to it. Especially since Amy is standing right there and she's the closest thing to a character to being a romantic interest. Which to this day has still not come to be, and thank God, because this was completely unnecessary. I mean, if they just excluded the kissing scene, then people would probably have seen the good intention behind their companionship.
I mean, come on, it's not like they made a song about it.
With a smiling face, the meaning of my destiny can be changed for your love. I can rule the world, my love.
That Sleeping Beauty was not a last minute thought, was it?
Number 4. Amy reforming Silver. Sort of a weird thing to bring up considering how polarized both of these characters are, but I think Amy Rose does have a huge impact in the game. Yeah, I'm actually admitted that Amy Rose, a character people either love or hate, actually does something big in Sonic 06. Is it for the fact that she creates a friendship with Silver? No. Is it for the fact that she saves Sonic twice from Silver? No. Although, those are good points. It's when she snaps common sense into Silver's head that Sonic is not going to be the reason Iblis will destroy the world. Now, why the heck would I put this on the list if it's such a short moment? Well, first off, let's talk about what fans seem to be split on the most. Amy Rose. Everyone has an opinion on her, but it's never the same. When it comes to the haters, they will say, oh, she's annoying, always whiny, doesn't do anything, she's always a damsel in distress, and she's just a tool to be an obnoxious Justin Bieber fangirl. The fans, however, disagree by saying she's funny, she's supportive, she actually does fight back, she's loyal to her friends and other people around her. She's convinced Shadow to help her friends, and she actually does something when she knows it's not time to screw around with Sonic. Both the fans and haters continue to fight back and forth to this day, just to prove their point. Wars have started everywhere, fans have betrayed each other, brothers murdered their own brothers, it has torn this fanbase apart.
Look how pathetic they are. I don't have time for these humans.
And as you can probably guess, I'm more on the fan boat of Amy Rose.
She's not the best Sonic character by any means, but I do think she is a good character. I could go on how I think she is good, but then again, I would be talking more about her than what this video is actually about. But I will talk a little bit about her. Amy Rose's first appearance was in Sonic CD, but the moment where she started to have her own character was in Sonic Adventure. And it's from this moment on when people were quite split on her. Granted, she hasn't gotten better when Sonic Unleashed came around, but to her credit, at least she's being supportive when she knows there's a job that needs to be done. And in Sonic Adventure, not only does she rescue herself and the bird after being captured by Zero, but she also reforms Gamma to think about what Eggman is doing. And then in Sonic Adventure 2, she is left behind by her friends and she manages to convince Shadow that he must help them save the world. And she speaks wisely to him, therefore making him remember his last promise to Maria, who died in the exact same room he's standing in. That's 2 villains she managed to reform. 2 villains! All by herself! She doesn't use violence to convince them, she uses her own words to put them in their place. And with Silver, it's no exception. Silver gets deceived by Mephiles to think that Sonic is the Iblis trigger that will cause the destruction of their world. So when it turns out the person he and Amy are looking for is the same Hedgehog, Amy puts her foot down when she catches Silver trying to kill Sonic.
Stop!
Amy? Get out of my way, Amy! This is my mission!
Absolutely not!
And what follows after Sonic leaves, I think adds good value to Amy's character, as well as Silver's character arc.
He's responsible for destroying my world!
That's crazy! Sonic would never do that!
But it's true! In the near future, his actions will cause the devastation of my world! So I must—
No! I don't believe it.
I mean, you gotta give Amy a lot of credit here. She's willing to snap in front of a Hedgehog who has freaking telekinetic powers, or psychokinesis as they call it. Unlike the time she reformed Shadow and Gamma, they usually did not have much time to think about what they were doing. I mean, true, Gamma had to do the math in his system, but with Silver, he never really does get convinced. If anything, what makes it so good is that he thinks about it. The reception on Silver as well as his story is kinda mixed among fans, but it's usually disliked more than Sonic and Shadows. And I honestly think this is such a great moment. Amy has such a kind heart and she's always energetic and happy about life. Silver appreciates her because no one from his time is ever happy. So when he sees that the morals are different in the past, it gets him to think about what he's getting himself into.
Well, Blaze? To kill someone to save the world. Is that really the right thing to do?
You're so naive. Whether it's right or wrong, I can't really say. But what I do know is, if we don't take this chance, the future will remain exactly as it is.
I mean, yeah, Blaze eventually convinces him to get back to business, but I think this is such a nice moment. He actually does think about it while staring off into the beautiful Super Smash Bros. Backdrop that he never sees in his time. It works towards Silver's character arc, and it gives the fans another reason to like Amy even more, despite being in a bad game. That, and of course, all the events in the game are erased! And yes, later in the game, Shadow also convinces Silver too by actually showing themselves where Mephiles and Iblis originated from. But if Amy never set her foot down, Silver would probably have never listened to reason. And while we're at it, you're probably wondering, what do I think of Amy saving Elise? Totally pointless! It's short, but it's just the right amount of time to make Amy shine, and for Silver to develop.
If I had to choose between the world and Sonic, I would choose Sonic.
Number 3. Mephiles the Dark. Yeah, you all knew this was coming. Mephiles the Dark is considered one of the only few good elements of the game. Or at least the only 2 good things people acknowledge. Mephiles is the half of Solaris that is the conscious mind. He is one of the 3 main villains in the game, and he's considered to be the best villain and best character in the entire game. So what is it that people really like about him? Well, he is such an evil bastard with nothing sympathetic about his will. And he is such a badass, I mean, especially when he's in that crystallized form. God, that design is awesome. And he's the first, and to this day, the only villain to ever kill off Sonic successfully. The main protagonist of the entire series. That is quite a ballsy move, but it really did pay off. Heck, even the people who downright despise this game admit this was a legit good moment. Which, then again, could have had a better resurrection scene. To many people, they see Mephiles as this badass who will go to any limit to join with Iblis again. That seems to be the reason why everyone loves Mephiles as being the only good thing in Sonic 06. But are those really the only reasons? Because if so, he would probably be number 5 on my list. So what is it that makes Mephiles such an awesome villain? Well, dare I say it, I think he actually has some good development. It's not a lot, but it works in a way where he's only the conscious mind of Solaris, and the raw power Iblis is just a flame. Mephiles was nothing more than a state of being when Shadow seals him in the Scepter of Darkness, and he reacts in a way like he's a child.
What? Stop.
Don't do that, it's not fair, it's not funny. And what's interesting is that Mephiles was never given a name. He was only given the name because that's what Shadow was calling him when he was chasing Mephiles. So you could make the argument that Shadow actually names Mephiles, and Mephiles probably decided,
Mephiles, huh? I kinda like that name, but I'm still gonna kill you, Shadow the Hedgehog.
And 10 years later, Mephiles forms into a similar body to Shadow's using a shadow. Yeah, apparently our shadows carry our DNA.
I never knew that.
And when he first appears, god damn does he look creepy. That stare is effective. Yeah, okay, it's rushed development and all that, and the graphics aren't really that great, but it's effective. And he stands like he's totally off balance. But the important thing to keep in mind is that he is the mind of Solaris, so he has to be able to gain power in order to get back to his other half, or even adapt into our world. So for an entity to be unable to stand up straight, it makes sense why he's such a weak character until he uses the crystals from Flame Core and the Chaos Emeralds to give him power. Even when Omega is shooting Mephiles at the beach, he is still off balance. Now, usually if there's nothing sympathetic about a villain, then sometimes they're not really that great. But the thing is, he didn't seem restrained to just be an evil like most of the other Sonic villains who just wants to rule just because they want to rule. What makes Mephiles stand out is that he's a great manipulator and deceiver. When he first comes across Silver in the future, he deceives him to killing Sonic by calling him the ablest trigger. Which, by the way, Mephiles was technically right. It's just his death would result in Elise crying. And then there's also a moment where Mephiles deceives Shadow into believing that the world will betray him, just so they can have a reason to blame someone for causing the apocalypse.
Yes, because after saving you guys from the Black Arms, he'll definitely betray you again when he's made his allegiance clear.
How ironic.
But to be fair, the government can go to these extremes. In fact, they've done it before in the previous games. Especially since, according to Mephiles, Omega is the one that can see a Shadow due to being seen as a threat for being too powerful. And this all works against our heroes until they can convince themselves that Mephiles cannot be trusted on his word, and he will use manipulation as a part of his plans to make the heroes feel more guilty for themselves and not totally point fingers at him. So even though if you know he's evil and he has this all planned out, his manipulation is not entirely false. For one, Sonic is the trigger on the gun to release Iblis from Elise. It's just Mephiles is the one that pulls the trigger in the end instead of Silver.
Can't rely on anyone these days. You gotta do everything yourself, don't we?
And two, it could be very possible that the government turns on Shadow. Now, I wouldn't buy the whole BS with Omega. It could very well be Mephiles making an AI believe in something and know he will have to betray Shadow if he has to. And when Mephiles does deceive our heroes, he doesn't just tell them a lie. He says it in a way where even if you know he's lying, it almost sounds convincing. And I think a lot of it has to do with the pacing and how he can be informative or menacing when he needs to be. Now, is there any flaws with Mephiles? Oh, definitely. The major one definitely has gotta be, why didn't he just reunite with Iblis when he was in the future? The only thing I can think of is that Iblis has developed a being of its own and it's evolved to the point that Mephiles cannot combine himself with his raw power. But if that's the case, why didn't he just time travel to the point where Elise cried or died? Again, I think what makes Mephiles great as a villain is that he manipulates people to do his work so that way they feel the guilt and intimidation when they know it's their fault. And he has fun actually doing it. So in the end, he wants to put our heroes out of despair so they lose all hope while they await for Solaris to rule over all of time and space. Because in the end, hope is what moves our heroes forward to save Sonic in order to save the world.
Iblis!
Mephiles is the mind of the true antagonist of the game, and if that's so, he's gotta be one of the best villains in the entire Sonic series. He's everything you want in a villain. Is he the best villain in the game? Hell yeah. Is he the best character in the game? Well... Number 2. Silver the Hedgehog.
What?
That's right, the second best thing in this game for me is Silver the Hedgehog. Now, you're probably surprised or just didn't see that coming. But I want to clarify what I'm going to get across here. When I say I like Silver, I mean his character, not his gameplay. I mean, come on, compared to Sonic and Shadow, he's just slow and obnoxious. I had more fun riding on the number ball on the side than actually trying to complete it. Although, to be fair, at least he was more easier to control. You just had to keep an eye on that power gauge of his.
God, I hate it when that happens.
But taking the gameplay elements aside, many people consider Mephiles to be the best character in the game. Whenever Silver is brought up, people don't seem to like him or acknowledge him as a good character. And I'll be fully honest, I don't get it. Silver the Hedgehog, in my opinion, is probably the most developed character compared to anybody else in the entire game, and his progression from beginning to end has such a huge impact in how he sees things from a moralistic standpoint.
So before you load those guns and try to blow my brains off again, just let me explain.
Silver the Hedgehog is born in an apocalyptic world along with his ally and best friend Blaze the Cat. For all we know, there are survivors, and anyone who has the power to face up against the flames of disaster does so in order to calm the destruction down. They live in a world where it's a matter of life and death. Survival would be their main instinct, and if it means taking a risk to save their own kind, they're willing to take it. But because Silver has spent so much time facing up against Iblis, he's always at the stress of desire in a way he can get rid of Iblis for good. Despite having the responsibility to protect the survivors, he questions more about who Iblis really is, where did he come from, and why they can never truly defeat it. It's not until Mephiles shows up to explain how Iblis was released, and so Silver and Blaze are manipulated to do Mephiles' work in the hopes it puts Elise out of despair and makes Silver feel more responsible for causing the end of the world.
In order to change the past, you must eliminate the individual who has awakened Iblis, the Iblis Trigger. And you have this person to blame.
I see it!
I see it! I see it now!
And so Silver and Blaze are separated when they are sent to the past, which supports Silver's character arc as it gives him the time to admire the world around him, and get to know Amy as a person who is not under the pressure he and his people have to face in the future. And bringing back my number 4 pick on this list, Amy reforms Silver by actually realizing that the morals between his time and the present are not going to be the same. In his time, they might take a life if it means survival, but here it's a matter of a person's life being at stake for possibly not being the reason for the apocalypse. If anything, this gives him more of a dilemma of what is the right thing to do, to kill or to not to. The only reason he stays on track is because Blaze and Mephiles encourage him to, but we can't blame Blaze for it as she's not as insecure as Silver is. She's more in the position where she believes that if something needs to be done, it has to be done. Whereas Silver actually questions what is the right and wrong strategy when the answers are not always there for him when he needs it the most. So later, when he talks to Mephiles again, he's back to being more certain he can finish the job. This time, he takes it seriously, causing Elise to be captured for a 3rd frickin' time. Well, there you go, haters. You can blame Silver for at least 2 of the kidnappings. I guess.
It's probably just a bug buzzing behind me. Not important. Oh, Dr. Eggman was my second guess!
And then this is where we have our only moment in all 3 stories where our 3 main characters are on screen together. Shadow saves Sonic, and then he knocks some common sense into Silver's head. Literally. Ouch. And the one thing I like in this scene is that even though Shadow is trying to convince Silver that he's being deceived by Mephiles, it seems like Silver is going through this turmoil mixed with stress, anger, determination, and confusion.
I won't let anyone get in my way. I won't give up. It all depends on me. Can't lose. Not when I'm so close. I'll change the past and save the world.
In fact, throughout the entire story, it seems like this is Silver's biggest dilemma. The stress of what is right, what he should do, being confused when he doesn't have the answers in front of him, emotional understanding in a world of peace, his commitment to saving the world, and his perseverance of accomplishing what is needed for the greater good. Whenever he's on screen, I don't see Sega putting him in just for the filler purposes of having a third main character. He goes through so much development that, again, in my opinion, he's the most developed character with the most progression in the game. Now, of course, if I do compare him to Sonic and Shadow, counting the series as a whole, yeah, Sonic and Shadow are way more interesting. But in this game, Sonic and Shadow, well, not bad in any way, don't really have that much of a character development to go through. They just do what they know is right and go up against the evil that threatens to conquer their world. But with Silver, he goes through so much trying to understand what is the right thing to do. And let's face it, morality is going to be different and the right answer is not going to be in front of us when we need it the most. But it doesn't stop there, because he does admire the world in the past and just how happy and beautiful it is. Even if it's just a stupid forest backdrop or a desert, it's something that inspires him as if he's an alien in a whole new world. And so much of this has changed him that he can't put himself in the position to seal his best friend into another dimension.
Steal us into a different dimension!
No! I can't do that to you!
Didn't we already go through this? We agreed to save the world at any price!
I can't! I wouldn't know what to do without you! You fought alongside me to save the world! You're my friend, right?
He is determined with a good heart, badass powers, and the will to provide happiness to his people. But he also becomes insecure, naive, and, dare I say it, kind of flawed. But in the end, no perfect being is flawless. Silver's gotta be able to have tomorrow. He's gotta be able to be manipulated. He's gotta be able to think about what he's going through. And a lot of that has to do with the acting. I mean, sure, the writing can be weak sometimes like it is in most Sonic games. I mean, come on guys, admit that, it's not really that great. But he's animated probably better than Sonic and Shadow. Not necessarily in terms of how he moves, but making the situation less painful by giving an expression to the stuff that's going on around him. And I honestly think the guy who did the voice for Silver, Pete Capella, put a lot of his effort into making this character work for what Sega was trying to get across. He can bring out the desperation in Silver's voice, and it really works. I'm honestly trying to find something bad to say about his character, and truth be told, I can't think of anything. Why is it that this character was disliked by so many people? So initially, I had to ask some friends who have played this game and to see what they think, and nothing of what they say holds as a valid reason. The only reasons are his gameplay and the plot holes in the story. And yes, Silver's gameplay does suck, and his story does have a few problems, but A, gameplay and plot holes don't affect him as a character if he does develop more than everybody else. And B, let's face it, Sonic and Shadow's story is no exception. Their gameplay and story too has just the same amount of problems. Honestly, I think it's because of the fact the game is so bad that it unintentionally encourages many people to hate on him. I mean, good God, it's pretty bad when you are introduced to a character like this.
It's no use! This will end it! It's no use! Take this! It's no use! Take this! It's no use! It's no use! Take this! It's no use!
You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier.
I mean, if you're gonna judge a character based on something that doesn't affect him as a character, I suggest you start looking back on this game and seeing Silver's progression from beginning to end if you exclude all the gameplay elements. Because to me, he is the most developed character in the game. And yes, it would have been better if Sega didn't make none of it happen at all! But to be fair, this game is embarrassing as is, so if Silver no longer exists, it would be better to remember his debut in something other than this game. But the way Sega does handle it, I think is handled very effectively. And when he does get separated from Blaze forever, it's a legitimate sad departure. A bittersweet ending in which he succeeds to bring back light to his world while losing his best ally and friend. From beginning to end, I will definitely say it was worth the time. It's just, the debut could probably have been in a better game. Thank you! His gameplay may be annoying, but he is, in my opinion, the best character in Sonic 06.
You're still so naive. But I've always liked that about you.
Good luck, Silver!
Be sure to embark on a better adventure game than this piece of shit give us credit for!
Life is just a game.
And the number one good thing in Sonic 06 is...
In this world, where life is strong. In this world, life's an open book. In this world, where compromise does not exist. In his world of rules, every step meets the rest.
Yeah, I know, I'm being predictable here, but I'm sorry, I can't help it. I don't care if this game is bad, this theme is fan-tastic.
Fan-tastic.
And you know what? I bet even you can't brain yourself down to say this song sucks.
Spikes up his memory and straps on his shoes. Cause he's the best there ever was, haven't you heard the news? Intergalactic Continental Champ, running things. Hyperactive instrumental with pulling strings.
I know it's kinda cheating to count the main theme of the soundtrack as the best thing. I mean, that shouldn't really count as a number, but in this case, I'm making the exception.
Bounce to the beats and the rhymes, cause they're here to stay. The one and only marathon man, living the day. Rolling up, coming fast, and they'll blow you away.
I remember when I was back in my freshman year in high school, my friend Sean from my Cell Wars project, don't look it up! And I used to listen to this song a lot during our school's lunch break.
Hi, YouTubers! Get out of the way, this is my show!
We didn't play the game right away when it came out because, for me, I never owned an Xbox or a PlayStation 3. I could only play Nintendo games around the time. So when I heard that people found this game to be horrible, I thought it was just fans bitching and moaning over the usual flaws that you would see in any other kind of Sonic game. But once I started to come across the glitches and all the other bugs, I started to see why people have a hatred for this game. But you know what? It doesn't take away just how awesome his world is. It's just as great as Open Your Heart, Live and Learn, Sonic Heroes, and any other song that represents Sonic as a fun, free will, caring guy who does what is right and uses his speed to not only kick ass, but just have fun while doing it. It represents Sonic's world where life is strong, where life is an open book, and okay, the song speaks for itself how awesome Sonic is, and every lyric seems to fit not only the story that Sonic 06 is trying to get across, but it also doesn't exclude the fact that this is about Sonic the Hedgehog. An interesting note is that, unlike all the past main themes in the Sonic games, particularly the 3D ones, his world, while performed by Crush 40 for the game, did not actually write the song. Yeah, his world was actually written by two members of a punk rock band, Zebrahead. So, despite the fact that Crush 40 ended up doing his world for the game, Zebrahead also has their own version, and you know what? It's without a doubt just as good, if not better than Crush 40's version. Yeah, I just said that. God, I could listen to both versions back and forth and never get tired of them. Well, whether if you like Crush 40's or Zebrahead's better, his world is just pure awesomeness. And yes, this is indeed the number one good thing, strike that, the best thing in Sonic 06 ever.
So there we go, my top 7 actual good moments of Sonic 06, and looking back, it's actually kind of shocking how much good intention was put into the game.
For a game that raises so much disappointment and still does to this day, it's hard to imagine a Sonic game having actual good things to it if it's considered to be the worst in the franchise. Now, is it honestly the worst? Because it's not like we can just ignore the fact that the Sonic franchise had bad games in the past. So why would a game that looks like it has more development be worse than something like Sonic Labyrinth or Sonic Drift?
It's destroyed!
It was bad because of how the game was either a bad experience or it was scaled in a way where it felt too frustrating to play. And even if most of these bad Sonic games had bad gameplay, most of them didn't feel broken, in that they didn't seem incomplete. They were just not fun. But the thing is, they have no redeeming qualities, mostly because of what games were limited to back then. So if Sonic 06 has redeeming qualities, why is it considered to be the worst? Well, as much as we like to throw every excuse we can find at the game, there's really only 2 major reasons why Sonic 06 is the worst Sonic game. For one, yes, it was incomplete with horrible gameplay, and even the non-HD cutscenes felt like their problems were never fixed. So does this mean if they took the time to fix these problems, Sonic 06 would have been a good game? Well, as much as the gameplay is the main issue, that also brings up the second problem that the Sonic team has brought on themselves. It's not for the fact that they weren't trying hard enough, it's for the fact they were trying too hard to create the best Sonic game. As much as I give them credit for trying something new, a lot of these ideas are way too complicated with several plot holes that raise a lot of questions. Eggman's realistic design is creepy as f***. Elise herself is boring. Shadow's quote-unquote story arc goes nowhere. There was no legit romance between Sonic and Elise, and the kissing scene just comes out of nowhere. Blaze's appearance is inconsistent to the rest of the franchise, and as much as even the haters will disagree with me on this, Sonic is surprisingly blander than Shadow and Silver. Yes, I really do mean that. At first it started off promising with his sarcastic and goofy attitude in the first cutscene, but after that scene is done, it's like they scrapped his personality for an entire plot that's either too contrived or just doesn't make Sonic that fun guy we love. Maybe with the exception of him actually kicking ass, but even then, those moments are really rare, and the only time where it's welcoming is when we do see some bit of companionship between Sonic and Elise. But because this is all tied up in a script that could have been revised, it's hard for us to feel any emotional connection to these characters. Maybe with the exception of Silver, who does get a lot of development, but even then, he is still caught up in this contrived plot. So, yeah, the script is really the second major reason this game is bad, but the gameplay is definitely the worst since that's where the experience comes from. And if we want to have a fun time running around the world with this Hedgehog, we can't have that great time if all we are experiencing is these bugs and glitches. If we spend most of the time working around them, then it only makes the game feel more broken and more repetitive. And that's why Sonic 06 sucks. I mean, think of all the good things I have picked and tell me, which one has anything to do with gameplay? Exactly. And while these good moments do make me at least enjoy what could have been great, it doesn't redeem what we've got. And for those of you who disagree with the majority and love this game, I'll be one of the few people that will say, go ahead and enjoy what entertains you. But for me and everyone else, Sonic 06 is a bad game that I will admit did have good potential. But for the rest of the series as a whole, it's a great franchise I hope doesn't go away anytime soon. Don't be the tombstone, Sonic Boom.
So, if you notice any other good moments in this game, be sure to leave it in the comments down below, and all I can say is, I'm NitsuaGamer, signing off, and this is a broken game.
Watch your
Alright, so a couple moments of silence. We get to go.